Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is a Merrill Breakaway Advisor Roundtable, how to recreate the community, culture, camaraderie, and competitive spirit of the wirehouses. It's a conversation with Michael Henley of Brandywine Oak Private Wealth, Matt Liebman of Amplius Wealth Advisors, and Jerry Davidsey of Priscillium Private Wealth. I'm Louis Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for Financial Advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, our mission is to help advisors live their best business life. We want every elite advisor to find exactly the right place for their business and their clients to thrive, whether it's at a wirehouse, a regional, boutique, or independent firm. As the industry's leading recruiters and consultants, we've transitioned more than $250 billion in assets under management in the past decade, and each year, 25% of transitioning advisors who manage $1 billion or more are our clients. If you'd like to talk, please feel free to give us a call at 908-879-1002. Are you a financial advisor who's curious about whether you're in the best place to serve clients, or if there might be a better way to optimize your business for the future? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a new book that serves as a self-guided journey, walking you through the key steps that Diamond Consultants takes with our advisor clients, whether considering change or not. Visit diamond-consultants.com/thebook to learn more.
One of the most common concerns we hear from advisors who are considering the leap to independence is leaving behind the culture, community, and support they've grown accustomed to in the wirehouse world. And that's a perfectly valid consideration. No doubt, advisors have been vocal about the lack of freedom and control they're experiencing at the big firms. There's still a lot of positives about having a big brand with a seemingly endless budget behind you. And it's the foundation for plenty of exceptional advisory practices. Yet for many who've made the break to independence, the reality is that life outside the walls of the wirehouses is pretty amazing. In this special episode, we've asked 3 breakaway advisors who have developed extraordinary independent businesses to join us and share how they did it, what trade secrets they have to creating businesses that merge the best of the wirehouses with the freedom and control they were searching for. I'm excited to welcome former Merrill advisors, Michael Henley, the founder and CEO of the $1.6 billion Brandywine Oak Private Wealth, Matt Liebman, CEO of $1.5 billion Amplius Wealth Advisors, and Jerry Davidsey, CEO of $500 million Priscillium Private Wealth. These 3 advisors, and a few of their peers, looked for ways to develop their own community of like-minded business owners and share ideas around growth strategies, marketing, and ultimately a level of collegial support that may otherwise be missing as business owners. Each has been a guest on the show in the past, so I encourage you to visit the episode page on our website for their full backstories. Today, we're going to move the ball forward to get a sense of what makes them successful, and I'll ask them to share their thoughts on being founders of a business for our Founders Blueprint segment. There's a lot to discuss, so let's jump in. I'm very excited to welcome Jerry, Matt, and Michael to our special video roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis.
Very good. Well, let's jump in. This question will go around the horn. Let's start with Jerry, then go to Michael, and then go to Matt. Can you each give your brief background, your tenure at Merrill Lynch, and just some context on your overall practices for our audience?
Yep. I'm Jerry Davidsey, CEO of Priscillium Private Wealth. I started at Morgan Stanley in 2001, a couple of weeks after graduating from college. I was there for 10 years and then at Merrill Lynch for 11 years before founding Priscillium.
Excellent. Thank you, Jerry. How about you, Michael?
Michael Henley, CEO of Brandywine Oak Private Wealth. I spent 8 years at Merrill Lynch before launching Brandywine Oak Private Wealth in 2018. So I've been independent about 6 years, almost as long as I was at Merrill.
There we go. Matt, your turn.
Matt Liebman, CEO of Amplius Wealth Advisors, was in the investment business, more on the research and portfolio management side for about 8 or 9 years in New York, then was at Merrill Lynch in wealth management for 13 years, and we launched Amplius about 3.5 years ago.
Terrific. And maybe just for some extra context, can you talk a little bit about what your respective independent firms look like today in terms of amount of assets you manage, number of folks on your team, anything like that?
Yeah, At Priscillium, we manage a little bit more than $500 million today, and there's 5 of us on our team.
At Brandywine, we manage 1.6 billion, 15 person on the independent firm side. We have about 19 people if we include the tax practice. So a lot of moving parts.
And at Amplius, we're just a little bit behind Michael there. We're at about 1.4 to 1.5 billion and about 13 people currently.
Amazing. I'm smiling here for a lot of reasons, but all 3 of you are former clients of our firm. And I think I can say that you all have grown your practices pretty significantly since leaving Merrill. Obviously, that's always the goal. That's what advisors shoot for. But you 3 are a real life case study of the power of owning your own destiny, which is what we'll spend most of the episode talking about. But I think one of the big things that advisors, especially coming from a firm like Merrill, talk about is that community and camaraderie and the kind of the competitive nature of working in a branch office and having expert professionals around is something that they miss. And if you go independent, it's great that you're building your own office, creating your own culture, but all of a sudden it's just you and your team, for better or worse. The reason this video roundtable came together was I know the 3 of you and some other advisors are part of a study group. So maybe one of you can just give some background into why you created the study group, what it is you guys do, and maybe talk about how you think it recreates the key cultural elements that you probably missed leaving Merrill.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Lewis. I would call it a mastermind of rock stars, not a study group, but it's okay. So no, essentially, yeah, I'm actually part of a national mastermind with the Perfect RIA with Matt Jarvis and those guys. And that was invaluable in terms of sharing best practices. So we try to recreate a similar local mastermind where we hold each other accountable, kind of review best practices, what's working in your firm versus other firms, and really just make sure we're holding each other accountable for whatever we're trying to deliver. So whether it's a new value add for clients, freezing credit reports or repricing or whatever the case may be, trying to create some of that competitive environment again, where really competitors can become collaborators, and we can find that basically we can do more for all of our clients collectively by sharing what is working.
And what is the difference between a mastermind and a study group?
No, it's the same sort of thing. They're really sharing best practices, like a one-day offsite at a country club or a kind of an agreed-upon venue. And no, it's been great so far.
And do you feel like the addition of the mastermind, do you feel like it's replaced some of the cultural elements that maybe you longed for your days at Merrill? Or do you feel like it still comes up short in some ways?
No, I think it really does. And I think quite honestly, we've almost expanded the mastermind to include non-Merrill advisors as well. So it's been super helpful to hold that, I think, the competitive nature of it, the collaboration. The one thing I did love about Merrill was the willingness of senior advisors to help you out, basically give advice on what's working for them. So we're recreating that same sort of collaboration here on the outside.
Very interesting. Well, I'm going to ask you about how each of you built your very impressive practices. Let's say it's 2 phases. It's how did you build your practices when you're at Merrill, and maybe how you've built your practices or built your practices up since going independent. Let's start with Matt and then go to Jerry and then go to Michael.
I was definitely lucky that when I joined Merrill, I was joining an already established large team that my father had started, who's now been in the business, let's call it 55 years. I'm not that far off from that number, somewhere around there. After the Coast Guard and a stint at the IRS, he joined the wealth management business. Or back then, I think it was called brokerage, but and he always mocks me with that. But anyway, I joined my dad about 16 years ago now. And we really built out the practice. The goal was really to bring on new assets, have a younger client base to really build out with some of those younger, high earning clients that I knew from my time in New York and so on. And then as we got a little bit larger, and really she was sort of like I guess Michael already used the term mastermind. So I'll call Aaron a rock star. Aaron was sort of the rock star of the training program, and he came on and partnered with us about maybe 3 or 4 years before we went independent. And I think everybody here is just so much more on the same page, rowing in the same direction, that I feel like that oozes out, when you're talking to prospects and clients, and that leads to more growth. Just sort of building on what Michael was saying before, the community and continuity of independence has really helped our growth and been, if anything, the biggest upside surprise to independence, in that both being a part of the Dynasty Financial Partners Network and working with those outside of it. But everybody in the independent space has been so willing to help us. And it's been a very great sharing community that has really helped us grow as well.
That's terrific. And yeah, someone who's in a family business as well, I know just because you join a family business doesn't mean the business continues to be successful or you're able to propel it to where you have. So I think so many advisors in this industry they're lucky to have a family member who's a mentor, kind of gives them the foundation. But I know with you, you modernized it. It sounds like you took the business more upstream and you saw the vision of what your life and the business can look like if you own the business and went independent. So I think it's a very instructive kind of path. How about you, Jerry? What's your story for growing the business, both before Merrill and after?
Yeah, myself and my team built a great business while we were at Merrill Lynch serving corporate executives here in the area. But we've really built an exceptional business since then. And I think it's much easier to grow once you're on the independent side and can actually brand yourself and show that you and your firm are really different than everything else that's out there. Where at a place like Merrill Lynch, that can be very difficult to do.
Let's double click into that. Intellectually, that sounds right, but how does it actually translate into new assets and new clients?
One of the things I wish that we could have done while we were at Merrill Lynch was more video or focus on more ways that we could communicate with our clients. As soon as we launched Presilium, we began filming videos at least every week for our clients. And what's happened is not only do they enjoy hearing from us much more often than we could previously reach them before, but they wind up sharing them with family, friends, colleagues, and our growth has just exploded since then.
I'll give you a plug. Jerry is a terrific follow on LinkedIn. He does come out with his own videos in his own recording studio that you're seeing right now. But I think he makes the complex world of the financial markets like really easy to understand. And that seems like it's your own, that's your unique kind of brand DNA. And I am not surprised to hear that that's translated into growth. That's a great story. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, just plug Jerry again. I stole his video idea. So I've long said, Lewis, I'd rather copy a genius than invent mediocrity. And I would say Jerry's video series was just an unbelievable inspiration for us. So now I built my business the old-fashioned way, cold calling back in 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012. And since leaving Merrill, I would say just focused on DuPont executives or its affiliates, if you will. Since leaving Merrill, we've really focused exclusively more on tax and tax planning, starting off a tax preparation business. So having that kind of the tax prep business to run alongside the REA has been helpful as a differentiator. If we're in a competitive situation, we can do all the family's tax planning and tax preparation in-house. It's been a nice differentiator.
Definitely. And Michael, if I recall, when you were at Merrill, you had one or two partners that were close to taking Merrill's Retire in Place program, CTP. And I think you've bought out a partner or two since going independent. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic?
Yeah, sure. So our senior partner, Steve and Tracy, now Lisa, since then, we're literally days or weeks away from executing the CTP deal at Merrill. And ordinary income, kind of 4-year payout is what it is. But working with them on, hey, let's go ahead and move to the independent space. We can structure this as a 10-year payout, long-term capital gains tax treatment rather than ordinary income, more flexibility. You retain your kind of titles. You're not made a consultant at the firm. It's been instrumental for them. They couldn't be happier. Our entire firm collectively, quite honestly, has never been happier.
Amazing. And I know from working with a lot of multi-generational teams that CTP or UBS's Alpha program or Morgan Stanley's FAP or any firm's Retire in Place program is the perceived easy button, right? You don't have to transition. You know what you're going to get for the most part. How did you go about convincing Steve and Tracy and Lisa that they should actually sign up for a lot of extra complexity, sign up for a transition and do your own customized CTP deal as an independent versus them just staying at Merrill and doing it the old-fashioned way?
No, it's a great question, Lewis. I would say, quite honestly, they're both very loyal to their team and clients. So I would say once they realized that, hey, our entire team collectively was not happy being overseen by a big bank, and I showed them the after-tax economics, it was difficult to argue with. Better outcomes for clients, more conflict-free advice, better economics for them, and the team's much happier. You know, they were on board.
Win-win. Got it. So let's keep going here. What were each of your why stories for going independent? So what motivated you to go independent? And as you looked yourself in the mirror before saying, yes, I'm going to do this, what was your pull? Why'd you do it? Let's start with Matt on this one and then go to Michael and then round out with Jerry.
So as members of your company, Lewis can attest, I was in the bin of people that you call and keep on the list maybe every 6 months, every 12 months, give an industry update. And I think your mom, the first time she met me, rated me as a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10 of likely to leave. So she told me that later. Anyway, she was right, frankly. I mean, we probably talked for a decade before actually doing anything. And I think ultimately, as Michael mentioned, being underneath the larger bank, things started to get a little challenging. But I would say it was more the pull of independence than the push out the door of a big firm. We were very well liked, well respected at the big firm and content and happy. But the more we started meeting with other firms, we thought, well, these are like marginally different, but I don't know that it would move the needle for us. And then when we took the first meeting with Dynasty and saw that, in fact, we can launch our own business, own our own business, but not have to do all of the back office and middle office complexities that go along with it, which frankly were scary. It was a bridge far enough to go independent, and doing it without a partner just seemed totally scary. That's when the light bulb went off, and it's like, oh, we can do this. Then we sort of set out to get it done from there.
And what were some of the most pronounced pain points you had before you decided to leave? Or what was it that even gave you enough motivation to take time out of your busy day to explore alternatives to Merrill Lynch?
I always equate it to what I call sort of the who's the boss factor of essentially the more we thought about it. I think every good advisor, whether they're at a wirehouse, they're independent, somewhere in between, thinks of their client as their boss, their collective clients. That's who we're in this business to work for. We work for the clients. But more and more at a big firm, I felt like I was twisting myself in a pretzel to keep that the case, that effectively the local management had an agenda, the regional management had an agenda, the bank had an agenda, the board of directors and the shareholders. And that's a lot of agendas before I'm not even criticizing them. I'm more just critiquing the model. We just wanted to simplify that. Like, okay, what do my clients want? And let's just work for our clients exclusively. So I don't know, Louis, that I can pinpoint there was this one day, although my dad, Aaron, and I joked, there was one lunch we had where at some point during the lunch, and I was always the most conservative of the three of us, I banged my hand on the table and I said, that's it, we're going. And I don't even remember what it was that happened that day. But it was just a series of things. And then just looking at the overall business models and the comparisons, like we just couldn't unsee what we saw. It was time to go.
Yeah. So paraphrasing, it was a combination of multiple things. It wasn't one major event that gave you a kick in the butt. It was a combination of things combined with seeing a better way to service clients. And like you said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So we talk about the pushes and pulls. Every episode, we probably mention it. But the pushes were the things that were frustrating you. But the pull was the strong desire to be a fiduciary to clients, to own your own business, and to serve them in a completely unconstrained way. And once you kind of realize that your clients weren't going to be, if your ability to service clients wasn't going to be diminished, it's actually going to be enhanced. It was kind of hard to go back and say, you know what, I'm still at the right place. Because at the end of the day, your clients are your clients. And that's what you're in business for.
And not just saying this because he's here, but Michael was an inspiration in that. Seeing him successfully do it and talking to him once we started going down the path, it was just another proof of concept. Wow, this could really work. We could do this.
Terrific. How about you, Michael? Same question. What was your why for going independent?
Yeah, for us, Louis, we were never unhappy at Merrill, but what I just kept observing was the largest, most successful teams in the industry were going independent to provide better, more holistic service to their clients. So in speaking with ex-Merrill advisors, these hugely successful teams, why did they do it? Sitting down with them for us was the most influential. That after doing extensive due diligence, just like Matt said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And we have a fiduciary duty to our clients to make sure that we're giving them conflict-free advice. So for us, it was a matter of just happier team, happier staff, happier clients, more holistic service, great stuff.
Michael, I think that's exactly right. But I got to ask, when you decided to leave Merrill, it's not like you're at the firm for 20, 30 years. You're there for what many people consider a relatively short period of time. And you were really, really young in the industry. So given all that you had accomplished in fairly quick order at Merrill, wouldn't it have been easier for you just to stay and just keep crushing it, keep growing the business? Like, how do you reconcile just I've grown this amazing business in a short period of time versus let's take up this business and let's sign up for the additional work of running a business? How do you reconcile those two conflicting priorities?
No, it's a great question, Louis. And candidly, I drank the Kool-Aid more than anybody. I had a bowl as my wedding cake. I'm not exaggerating. I had a Merrill Lynch bowl as my wedding cake. So I drank the Kool-Aid. I was going to retire from Merrill Lynch. Honestly, for us, it was just a matter of, hey, if we can provide more holistic, if we can upgrade, improve, or enhance every service we provide wealthy families, we just felt we had a loyalty to our clients to make that leap on their behalf. If we thought we could give conflict-free advice, staying at a big bank, we would have stayed there. It was the easy option, of course. But honestly, once you realize, okay, everything can be improved, everything to do with tax planning for a family, estate planning, kind of complex, advanced financial planning topics can be improved on the outside. You simply owe it to your clients to at least get educated on the options. And once you get educated, it's hard to look away.
Well said. Jerry, how about you? What was your why moment or why story for going independent?
Yeah, similar to Matt and Michael, we just felt like we could do everything better on the independent side compared to being at a big bank. We could customize everything for our clients and we could be much more responsive and adaptive to what they need. Like Michael, we added tax planning software, estate planning software, and we don't know what's going to happen next, but we feel like whatever happens in the world, we can make an immediate adjustment that's in our client's best interest. And once we thought about that and saw that and realized that we could do it, we knew we had to.
Yeah. I remember, I think you reached out to me maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We would talk maybe twice a year, but it was always similar. Like, we're probably not going to retire from here, but we're busy, we're growing. For now, we can do all we need to do for clients. What changed over time? 2 to 3 years ago, when you and Brooke reached back out and said, you know what, we're ready to explore this. What do you think changed that motivated you to explore alternatives at that point?
For us, during COVID, when we were working from home and we had all of that additional time out of the office to really think about things and not only reflect on where we had been, but think about how we want things to be, it was an easy decision.
Yeah, excellent. And next question is, I was going to ask it anyway, but it's probably going to end up being a little bit self-serving because all three of you were clients of our firm. But how did each of you go about getting educated on all the different options you had in front of you? Any resources or people you spoke to that were especially helpful in giving you the comfort that you understood all the different players in the space and that you were making the right decision for your clients and weren't going to have buyer's remorse?
There's only one answer, Lewis. Your podcast is the only reason, to me, is the number one resource by far. Nothing's even close. That's how we got educated, speaking for ourselves. And I'm just speaking with you directly. So that was hugely instrumental.
Great answer, Michael. 10 out of 10.
I'm going to go then for 20 out of 20 because in addition to the guidance, of course, that we got from your firm, I would say in particular, when we got more serious about possibly doing this, listening to the interview of Michael on your podcast was a seminal moment in our journey. We all listened to it and was like, oh, that's perfect. Let's go.
20 out of 20.
Definitely. There you go. Going for the trifecta here. Anything different for you?
Well, I agree with what they said. And for me, now that we're on the independent side, how cool is it that I get to be in a mastermind with Matt and Michael and these rock stars that became independent ahead of us? I heard on your podcast. I get to share best practices and ideas with them.
Very cool. Love it. And honestly, the three of you, we would have invited to do this, even if you weren't prior clients of ours, it just happened to go that way. But I think it is important to know that every advisor going through this, it has to be confidential, but it doesn't have to be something that you do in complete isolation. You can listen to podcasts, you can reach out confidentially to friends, you can speak to firms like ours and many of our competitors. And then also there's no replacement for talking to firms, as long as you're doing it in a very strategic and thoughtful way. It doesn't always have to be just, I'm trying to figure this out on my own and making broad assumptions. There's a lot of resources you can pull on to get as educated as you'd like before making the most important decision of your professional career. We started a new segment in our show called The Founder's Blueprint. And since each of the three of you are founders of your firm, I want to ask each of you a couple of questions. The first one, and you guys can pick who goes first, was the primary motivation in starting your firm financially driven or purpose driven?
I'll jump in there. There are, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners do, there are any number of avenues that if you want to leave a firm, you can go. And some of them are a lot more lucrative upfront, whether it's going to another firm, getting a check, particularly when you think about our situation. You were alluding to CTP, Merrill's retirement program before. If my dad wanted to retire, he could have just sat there and collected a check for not doing anything. And secondly, we could have gotten him a bigger check for going to another firm. And even at his age and experience in the industry, he still saw the benefits of independence. And a lot of it was just, you get to a certain point where it's like, don't get me wrong, money's great. It's our business. Love money. However, I really think just being able to run the business and service clients in a more complete way was really the driving factor for us.
Yeah, it's a great answer because the economics have to work, right? You're working to provide for your families so that your teams that you did, which came with little or no upfront capital. Michael and Jerry, anything different to add or a different spin on the question?
I think Matt said it best. For economic reasons, you join another large firm. You basically would jump from large firm to large firm to large firm, not thinking about your clients. If your loyalty is to your clients, the independent model is the most conflict-free, it's the cleanest model. So I just echo what Matt said.
Yeah, with us, it was always purpose-driven. When I started in this business, I wanted to own my own destiny. I wanted to be able to control the way my whole career went. And the best way to do that is to eventually become independent.
Yep, well said. Let's start with Jerry in this question. If you can get in your time machine and go back to both 1 year before you launched Priscillium and then 1 day before you handed in your resignation letter to Merrill, what would you tell yourself?
To have complete confidence that this is going to work out. Because I wasn't sure a year before and even the day before. It's difficult to know what your clients are going to say until you do it. But in hindsight, they saw the same thing that I saw. They realized that this would be a much better experience on this side. And all of them were really excited when they got that phone call, got the email, got the video that we had started our own firm. So I feel like Matt and Michael had the same experience, and most other advisors would too.
So you would tell yourself to be confident this is going to work out.
Yeah, I had a lot of sleepless nights thinking about how it might go. So I wish I had known ahead of time how well it would have gone. It would have made the days and weeks leading up to it a lot easier.
Well said. Michael or Matt, what would you tell the version of yourself a couple years ago?
I would say for us anyway, for me, a year before launching, I would say trying to learn every single detail. I think I'm analytical from that standpoint. I want to know every single detail, how it's all going to fit together. To some extent, you want to be educated, but you don't want to obsess over all the minutia. Focus on your client relationships. Clients hire you for advice, and the one thing that does not change in your transition is the advice you give them. So that's why they hire you in the first place. I would say the day before, I would say get ready for some surprises, whether it's a firm name change, like some happens to some firms, or it's a Fidelity or the custodial changing their pricing or whatever it is. Just get ready. You cannot have all the answers day one. So just buckle up and have a blast. It's the most fun I've had since being like in PMD at Merrill in the training program. Cold calling, it's the most fun you have. So imagine going back there with the same type of euphoria, but you're so much more confident now. You can give outcomes to these clients way better than you could when you first started. But it's that same euphoric kind of amazing feeling.
I love that. And that's like framing it as a positive, because transitions are really hard as the three of firsthand and probably never want to do it again. But focusing on why you're doing it and the feeling that you'll have once the hard work is really being recognized is, I think, what people have to remember. There's a reason you're looking around in the first place. There's a reason you're doing this for clients. And if you keep focus on what you're moving towards, it sometimes makes the sleepless nights a little bit easier because you're doing it for a reason. Every call you make is for you. It's for your clients, for your business, and you get out what you put in. So I love that perspective. How about you, Matt? What would you tell the younger version of Matt?
I really would echo a lot of what Jerry and Michael said, specifically Michael's point about, I guess I'll call it analytical anxiety, and Jerry's about confidence. I think between my dad, Aaron, the other members of our team, Dynasty and Fidelity, I probably drove everyone insane for the year leading up, just trying to think of every detail. And at the end of the day, like Jerry said, with hindsight, should have just been confident. Our clients hired us for our advice. And to Michael's point, what we decided to do was do something that we thought was going to be way better for them. I hope they would agree if they've been proven right over the last few years, and probably would have told myself, just breathe and go get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a fine line, because in my experience, the best transitions are ones where advisors take the angle that Michael and Matt alluded to, which is, I want to know how it all works. I have to get all my questions answered. So there's no replacement for that. Ultimately, you know your business, you know your clients, you know what you need more than anyone. So how would you guide advisors to draw the fine line between being too in the weeds versus just being thorough and getting your questions answered?
I was lucky that Michael had already gone through this and done a very similar transition to what we were about to do. So I had his guidance as well. But I think if you put yourself in the shoes of the client and you think about what you would want to know as a client that day, make sure as an advisor and leader of advisory firm that you'd lock up all those things in advance. Those are the essentials. And the rest, we always said we had the transition and then we had the transition from the transition.
I would just echo what Matt said there, is basically try and focus on strike the balance of what matters to your clients. I had so much head trash around, secure messaging. This stuff is nonsense, but it's stuff that really gets in your head. I was like, oh my gosh, the long-term care policies are not going to be on the Fidelity statement. It was like the clients are never going to go for this. That's complete head trash. It's all in your head. Clients don't care. They're there for you. They don't care about all this. A lot of that stuff, I swear, I look back on it, I'm like, what was I thinking? Who cares? But it's just in the moment, you're so ingrained. This is what clients are used to and what they care about.
Right. So I think there's a difference between you want to be able to replicate as much as you can from your old firm that was working, but it doesn't mean you have to be so rigid in building it exactly the same way, right?
Yep.
And if you can achieve an outcome that's equivalent or better, but maybe the path you take to get there is a little bit different, and maybe it's worth it. There's always going to be some non-negotiables. Some advisors can't deal with, I'm going to have two statements, one from the BD and one from the custodian. Some advisors, I can't bring over all my alternative investments, or SMA pricing is 15 basis points higher. Like, every advisor gets to pick what their non-negotiables are. But I think that's a really important learning, that you kind of got to draw the line, but use the client's perspective to guide you. If I'm the client, what am I really going to care about? Again, it's where am I going to get the best quality of advice? And then each client's going to have their couple of quirks and things, but you have to make a determination for the betterment of your entire client base, not one individual client. Love it. Thanks, guys. Next question. Whoever wants to take it. Actually, I'll start with Michael, because I think you have probably the most interesting answer to this one. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in the early stages of your firm, and how did you overcome them? You alluded to it already.
Yeah, so we launched our firm in 2018 with a certain firm name, and about a month after launching, we heard from the family that we named the firm after that we did not have their permission to use their family names. They said cease and desist immediately. I was devastated. My partner, Allison, and I, she's the brains of the operation. We were, oh my gosh, our clients are going to fire us. We just moved over about $500 million of assets, committed ACATs, and we had to launch a kind of a new branding of the firm. And that was something that I had a lot of head trash around. I said, oh, my clients are never going to go for this. You got to be kidding me. It's unstable. Clients could not care less. They all like the new name better anyway. That was complete head trash. I would say this is, no matter what kind of gets thrown at you, you have to come back to the clients hire you for advice. That is it. They don't care about the name of your firm. They just want you to have the best platform to kind of service them. So I would say that was one big thing. Custodial pricing was something that kind of changed. Not a big deal. All this is noise. It's just complete white noise. Focus on what you can actually control as it relates to giving advice to wealthy families, and ignore all the noise.
I'm sorry you went through that. That I know is very stressful, but it sounds like you landed in a better spot because of it. So things happen for a reason.
That's it.
How about Jerry? Any big challenges you initially faced?
Something that gave me a lot of confidence going into this was walking through the whole process with Dynasty in the year leading up to it. I think we had a 300-point checklist where we addressed every possible thing, both client-facing, back office, operations, legal, ahead of time. And going through that checklist with a team that had already done this, I think 50 times at that point, I felt really good about. We were very fortunate. We did not have any major issues either right before or right after. We had a very successful transition, and we're really growing quickly right out of the gate.
Wow. So maybe you're the one transition, nothing went like majorly wrong. Maybe what was one thing that went not as planned, right? Like, everyone can have a plan until they're punched in the mouth, quoting the great philosopher Mike Tyson.
Yeah, we originally opened our headquarters in downtown Philadelphia, and about 6 months after we launched, they decided to close and repurpose that office building into condos. So we were forced to move out the same month. They gave us 3 weeks notice to move out and go somewhere else. We wound up moving to a beautiful office in suburban Philadelphia that was better for my whole team anyway. So it worked out. It was just stressful for a few weeks trying to find new office space.
Got it. How about you, Matt?
I think the biggest challenge out of the gate, and by the way, nobody had a smoother transition than Jerry. It was amazing to watch. Like, the guy didn't sweat. It was unbelievable. Anyway, I think for us, maybe it was some of the legacy brokerage products that existed, be it alternative investments, some retirement cash flow oriented products at Merrill Lynch, that we probably, I can say we have not added any money to those going forward. And I think we now have better solutions available to us, but some very valuable clients had these products that we, for various reasons, we wanted to keep for them. And the transition of getting those over, getting them in a place where the clients could see them, that was a little clunkier than we had hoped for. Like Michael said, these are not deal breakers. These are not things that are top of mind for clients, but they can be a little aggravating for the clients and for us. So that was maybe a bit of a challenge. And I guess the second one along the same lines were clients that were used to banking out of their investment account, writing checks and so on out of their investment account. it's a little more disruptive. When it's one thing to move your investment account, it's another thing to move your bank account. So for those clients in particular, there were a couple kinks we had to work out along the way. Again, nothing that was insurmountable, but I'd say those couple of more operational details were challenges.
Both of those obviously were, you expected that you have to move these types of products and you have to move someone's not just investment account, but also their checking account. So you knew that was going to happen. Was it more so just like wishing you'd taken some extra steps ahead of time? Or was it how you positioned it to clients after you moved? Like if you had a do-over, what was it that you could have done differently?
I think I could have done a better job setting client expectations on those few things that maybe I didn't anticipate their pain enough on those things with a handful of clients, that even though these to me seem like minutia and details, the clients have their own life. They don't need to worry about what I think is a minutia and detail. It's disruptive to them. So I think maybe setting those expectations, like, look, we're going to take care of all this, but because you like to do banking here, and that's totally fine, there are just going to be a couple extra steps. And maybe explaining that a little better in advance would have been a good idea.
That's a great point. I think it's always good advice for advisors to take a little bit more time to not just pitch them if they're allowed to on why your new firm's great, why you're doing this, but taking the extra couple minutes to set expectations. Like, this is what's happening. Our team's going to be really busy. You had a credit line that's going to make things a little bit slower to move over. You have this and this. In the new world, this is what it's going to look like. We're not sure how else is going to work, but trust me, we got it. You're not going to lose money. We're on top of this. Just be patient with us because it's going to take time. I think, again, Matt, your point earlier was, I wish I kind of walked in my client's shoes or thought for what's the client going to find most important. I think this is kind of similar. If you received a call from your advisor that he was moving, you don't have any context into how long he was looking at this, what's happening. All you hear is change and noise and disruption. So I think setting client expectations is always terrific advice for trying to make it as smooth as possible, and at least let the clients know that you got this and that there's going to be frustrations, right? It's not going to be perfect, but you got it covered. Well said. Let's do next one, more about the growth of the business. So how did you each initially attract your first clients? And since then, what strategies have been most effective for you growing your client base? Whoever wants to go first.
I started in 2001 cold calling corporate executives and just called as many as I could, trying to convince some of them to become clients. And fortunately, just enough did that I could stay in this business. Since then, we've tried to have such a good service model that all of our growth is referral based. And then since being independent, having the video, the social media, the branding, the community involvement, all the things that we couldn't do before has just really accelerated that growth. I think that's something that many people underestimate, is how much faster you can grow on the independent side compared to the captive side.
Awesome. Michael, how about you?
Very similar. Built a business cold calling, as I mentioned, corporate executives early in my career, smiling, dialing. And basically the independent now, the social media side, the video series we launched, tax preparation business, all the clear differentiators, community involvement, as Jerry mentioned. You can't underestimate how many wealthy families do not want to work with a major Wall Street firm. It's been shocking. Family after family says, look, I would have never hired you at Merrill Lynch. I would have never hired you at Morgan Stanley. Just they understand it's a conflicted model. And once you articulate, to Cheryl Penny's point, the triangulation of advice, separating advice for products from manufactured and custody, the model it tells itself, if you will.
And on the same count, are there clients that you've come across or prospects since you left Merrill who you think ultimately would have been better served by a Merrill advisor, or ultimately didn't come your direction because they felt more comfortable with the big Wall Street institution?
I mean, our experience has been a non-issue. Whether the family has $5 million or $50 million, it is a non-issue. And if anything, we try to educate that family that, hey, if you take nothing else away, hire us or someone else, hire an independent firm to solve your family's financial problems. Do not hire a major Wall Street firm, whether it's us or someone else.
Interesting. Matt, how about you? Same question. Initial growth, and then since then, what's been the strategy?
So the initial group of clients that I brought on were, at the time, so I was 30 years old when I switched to wealth management. So these were people that ranged in age, let's say from 28 to 40, that were reasonably successful, high earning professionals sometimes in very sophisticated, financially sophisticated field, hedge funds, private equity, et cetera. But they were either haphazardly doing things on their own when it came to personal finance, or they were with their parents' person and were a bit of an afterthought. So given that I came from a research and portfolio management background and could speak their language a bit, specifically those in the real estate and hedge fund world, I really pitched myself as someone that would step in and do what you would do if you had time to focus on this. And from there, after getting that group on, it was a pretty substantial group of people and assets. That's when I started to mesh more with my father's practice. And we started to go downstream from some of his clients to their adult children, and then upstream from some of mine to their, let's say, senior citizen parents, and created a lot of multi-generational families that way. And then when Aaron joined, his model was much more similar to Michael's and to Jerry's of the cold calling of the corporate executives, which is something that I had not done. And that my dad had cold called a lot way back when, but was not cold calling corporate executives at this stage of his career. So that was sort of a perfect complement. And then just building on to what Jerry said, the ability to grow as an independent, something happens in the world, the markets, and you can just get a video out that day, get a piece out. It's amazing. All of a sudden, I've run into people at weddings. They're like, "Hey, you're that LinkedIn guy." And it's like, I guess I've been called worse. All right, I'll take it. And then the only thing I wanted to add, Lewis, is something you just brought up, because it occurred to me about who's better at a bigger firm, versus an independent firm. And for us in particular, given that a lot of my initial client base was in the New York area, I've found that while all of my New York clients, for the most part, I think all of them, came over and we still get new business up there, there's a little bit more of a premium on the Wall Street brand that New Yorkers have. I think whether it's all of those people are in their communities, their clubs, their schools, their kids' communities, the parents and so on. And I think there's a little bit more of, hey, these people really know what they're doing. It's this one at JP Morgan, this one at Merrill Lynch, and so on and so forth. Whereas I find the rest of the country views that as a negative, like, oh, those New Yorkers, I don't want any part of those big firms. There's a little bit of a geographic difference. I don't think it should matter. And ultimately, we got through those conversations and those clients are here and so on. But I think there's a little bit of a positive stigma if you're a New Yorker and a negative stigma if you're not a New Yorker for the big Wall Street brands.
Fair enough. Yeah. And look, every advisor gets to decide how important it is to them. For some, it's a personal badge of honor that they feel more confident and more empowered having a big brand on their business card. Others feel the opposite. Some feel on behalf of clients that their clients can be more comfortable with a big firm. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just every advisor knows themselves and knows their clients, and you got to make a judgment call for what's most important. One more question in this new segment here. Have any of you had any mentors or key team members who have significantly influenced your success?
I have. My team is amazing, especially Brooke Hart, Jackie Ellison, and Kelly Casper, who founded Priscillian with me. They constantly come up with new ideas on client service or ways that we could run the firm better. They're really committed to everyone we work with. So they're very inspiring and they've really helped this entire process.
Excellent. How about Matt or Michael?
Mine is pretty easy. My dad is both my personal and professional mentor, but in particular, when it comes to the business side, that he's been able to evolve and try and stay ahead of the curve for so many decades in a business where a lot of people, as you know, Lewis, can get a little stodgy sometimes and set in their ways. So that was really an inspiration. And then bringing on so many really keep me sharp. And it's been a fun transition to go from, in some ways fun, to go from the young guy on the team to the older guy on the team.
Love it. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I would say my leadership team is all rock stars. Allison Dorsman and Brittany Kowski, who I founded the firm with in the first place, are an inspiration every day. I would say Peter Kim on the investment side, Deanna Paluch on the marketing side. But my longtime mentor and friend, I have to just mention, is Jeff Erdman. Been my mentor since day one. Always been a great inspiration, even though he's still at Merrill.
And I think for anyone who doesn't know, Jeff, I think he's the largest advisor at Merrill and has been for forever. And he's a legend in the industry. So I think that's really cool that you still count someone who's so entrenched still at Merrill as a mentor. You got to respect where you came from.
And when I talked to Lewis, his number two, Tony, I said, hey, if you need a big firm, use Goldman as the custodian. Goldman Sachs, they want a Wall Street firm. Goldman's the custodian. It's a done deal.
Exactly. Thank you for that. This is probably one of my favorite questions that I'll ask you guys. What has been one of the most impactful things you've been able to do to better service clients and grow your business? I think we picked up snippets of this, but I think this is such an exciting question. We've talked about the trials and tribulations of transitions and everything that goes into it. But now that you have some perspective and being business owners for a meaningful enough period of time, what's one or two things that you look at and say, yes, I'm proud that I've done this, and this has really helped my business grow?
I'm happy to jump in. I would say for us, it's hands down the tax practice. If you told me 10 years ago at Merrill, you're going to own a tax preparation business alongside your wealth management business. You're going to have a law firm on retainer to solve clients' estate planning issues. Property and casualty we can do for them. There's so many services we've been able to add that has been instrumental. They've been a blast. Clients love them. We love them. That's probably been the couple biggest things.
So going deeper on the tax practice. So I think most advisors, they hear tax, they're like, important, but I don't want to do tax returns. This sounds really challenging and it's not as high a margin of business as wealth management. So how did you go about incorporating a tax practice into Brandywine Oak?
No, thanks, Lewis. We just basically, our lead CPA on our largest clients was looking to kind of branch away and do his own thing. So it was like a perfect synergy. And quite honestly, we were spending about a third of our time, quite honestly, on fixing clients' tax returns, where basically CPAs would report something wrong, something got over-reported, something got double distribution, something was totally wrong, or we did a donor advised fund, for example, was never reported correctly. So we wanted to be in a position to basically solve that issue entirely. We always felt that we were in between the clients and their tax preparer, like the wealth advisor kind of sits in the middle. If the tax preparer is across the hall, there's never an issue. So we get drafts of every return before they're filed. We review them. So this way it's done right the first time. But no, I would say it's finding the right CPA partner to lead the tax business is the number one piece of advice I would offer. Not a retiring CPA where you have to kind of hire it all out.
So basically, you found someone that your clients were already using. So you had proof of concept that he was one of the better ones, and then formed some sort of joint venture or partnership with him.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Let's go to Jerry. What's your most impactful takeaway from being independent?
Yeah, we thought about if we could somehow meet with every client every week, what would we say to them?
Wow.
And from that, this video series where we release a new video every single week on something that we think is going to be especially impactful for our clients. And then we posted that to social media across the board and just gotten hundreds of thousands of views, so many introductions from people who watched our videos first and then contacted us to work with them full time. So that has been a complete game changer for us, is the ability to produce our own videos and then distribute them over social media.
How, and I think like tax, probably a lot of people hear video and they start to get anxious and break out in hives and sweats. I know I often do. Once you kind of got the flywheel going, like how much time is it for you to produce videos? And do you think it's hard to do on an ongoing basis?
It definitely is hard and it takes a lot of time. For every video that we do, it probably takes us 4 to 5 hours because we do a really deep dive into whatever the subject is and then try to boil it down into what's most important for our clients so they can watch it in 2 to 3 minutes. So it does take time, but we feel like it's one of the most important things that we do.
Is doing the videos, is it pretty much replacement for any other proactive marketing your firm does aside from getting referrals?
It's not. We've done a lot of other types of marketing across social media and by doing community events. We really view the videos as a way for us to communicate with our clients. And then any marketing that comes out of it is a bonus. And then have a separate marketing plan for other things.
Interesting. Matt, how about you? Same question.
Before even answering, I'll say I feel so comfortable and reassured that it takes Jerry 4 to 5 hours to do those videos because they're so darn good. If he did them just in a few minutes, I'd be really stunned. So I feel better about that. He's human. But the videos are great. There are a lot of different examples I could give, Lewis, but let me just go in a slightly different direction here. And I'd say we've really been able to lean into choice in the independent world. And I'll give you one example on the asset side and one on the liability side that I think really illustrates some of the advantages. And they're simple and a little more product oriented, but I think they're really good illustrations. So on the liability side, Michael, I think mentioned a few questions ago, the topic of securities-based loans, or maybe it was you, Lewis, as part of the transition. When you are at a big firm, they have very good, at least our firm had very good securities-based loan products available. However, there was only one lender that you could take a loan from as a client, and that was the parent company. Being able now, when a client wants a securities-based loan, and maybe it's a little less fun than it was when interest rates were near zero, but being able now to shop that around to multiple different firms, try and get a better deal for the clients is just such a game-changing win for the client. And really, once you get your feet under you in that process, it's not that much harder to look at 4 firms than it is to look at one. You get it down pat. And so that's been a really big win on the lending side. And just to give you a similar example on the investment or asset side, when we were at Merrill, every now and then we would buy some Merrill Lynch, what they called market-linked investments or structured notes, but we didn't do a lot of them. And I think part of the reason was you only could choose, for the most part, there were some exceptions, but you could, for the most part, choose from a menu of alternatives that they would offer every month. And they were mostly brokerage products with commissions. And let's say the final terms to the client weren't always that compelling to us. Every now and then they were, and we would do them. Now on this side, in the fintech world, as things have evolved and developed, we actually customize our own structure that we think works for our clients. And we put it out to bid through some of our technology partners to about 15 different banks. I was just doing one earlier today, actually, for some clients. And you just get way more customized and better odds by leveraging choice to benefit your clients.
I'm glad you went the route of giving specific examples, because that's what makes it, I think, tangible and palpable, is hearing how things might be different, but also kind of in the weeds of the actual business. Let me ask you though, Matt. So choice is great. I'm with you that sounds really compelling. Do you think those 2 examples you use have translated into growth for Amplius?
Good question. I'd like to think so. And actually, I can say specifically on the investment side, I was trying to think of an example on the lending side where it led to growth since going independent. And I think our journey to independence also coincided with interest rates going up by a tremendous amount. So I think lending in general is down, which is fine. We're fiduciaries. We don't get paid on the loan. So there's no downside to our business from it. In terms, though, of those structured products, being able to say this is the Amplius Structured Notes program that you are a part of, that we are customizing for our clients. I have had clients mention that to prospective clients, and that has led to business. And I know, in fact, Aaron, my partner here, was talking to a client recently who had most of his money tied up in various things. He's like, I'm just looking for like a one-off investment oriented thing in addition to the financial planning. What do you want to do? And we pitched him on this program. And so we're doing that for him. And that was a couple months ago. And that's happened a couple times since then. So it has led directly to growth.
Any advice for former Merrill colleagues or any advisor who's thinking about change or just looking at the future, and you guys can kind of can serve as inspiration for them? Any parting words of advice or encouragement for other advisors? Let's start with Michael and then go to Matt and up with Jerry.
Yeah, I would say, Lewis, any advisors watching, you don't have time to squander. Quite honestly, the independent space is not what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You owe it to yourself and your clients to get educated. You just flat out don't have time to waste. It's just the grass is not just greener. It's 1,000 times greener. Our entire firm is collectively so much happier, so much more fulfilled. We create our own path, to Jerry's prior point. There's nothing like it. It's game over. Anyway, onward and upward.
Matt, how about you?
I don't know that I could say it much better than that, but I guess what I'd say is, because I'll go back to my analytical side and go on something you said. Independence isn't going to be for everybody, and you have to do your due diligence and you have to do your research. But broadly speaking, from a business model perspective, I think it's just a better business model. I would equate it to the other side of our industry. Mutual funds versus ETFs are winning new business. But mutual funds aren't going away. They still exist. There's some very profitable mutual fund companies. But I think when you factor in all the benefits, ETFs overall, I think, are just a better product. And I would view the independent RIA world as just an overall better experience for the client and advisor than the wirehouse. Doesn't mean the wirehouse has to go away tomorrow, but I do think that's where the growth is going to continue to be.
Well said. I like that analogy too. I'm gonna leverage that in the future. I'll give you credit though.
Fair enough.
Lewis, everyone always says it on your podcast, but it's true that everyone wishes that they had done it sooner. And the reason is it's just so much more fun giving clients the experience that they really want. Just being able to work with your team every day and only doing what's in the best interest of our clients and thinking about fun, creative ways that we can grow and serve them. And like Michael said, it's a home run. It's so much fun. And I wish I had done it sooner.
Fantastic. Thank you, all 3 of you, for investing time to come back on our podcast. We have, if anyone wants to go deeper with Michael, Jerry, or Matt, they can listen to the full episodes we did with them. But we'll have to make this a habit of doing it again. It's so different to see kind of the way you answer the questions and also how all of your hard work is translated into actual tangible results. So thank you very much for sharing your perspectives and your journeys to running some of the most successful RIAs in the country. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks for having us.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.